This is how we do it.
Hey guys, welcome to the Legal But Not Lit series. And this time around, we will be talking about alcohol and how you as a youth should not be using it to get lit. Now, it might look familiar from another series, POP, which was Prevention Over Prescriptions, where we focused on opioids. So this time we're talking about a legal substance in the United States, but not for youth under 21. So stay tuned. We'll be talking about how alcohol affects the body, some friend factor questions from the youth as far as how peer pressure affects your use of alcohol, and a lot of questions that youth have sent in to health organizations. I'm Celine Craig, and welcome to the Legal But Not series. Thanks for joining us. It's going to be fun. Don't laugh because I am a jokester. So you're going to enjoy. So please stay tuned. You'll learn a little something to take back into the community. And we appreciate you joining us legally but not lit. Hey guys, so this first episode of the series Legal But Not Lit focuses on how alcohol as a drug, many of you may not know that, but it is a substance, and how alcohol changes the functions of your brain and your body, and how they're both widely used in the community for adults, making them legal, but nonetheless alcohol has a strong impact on how it functions in youth in particular, but humans in general. And so they can cause a number of negative effects for both adults and youth on the brain and the body, so ranging from mild symptoms to addiction, which we've spoken on before. But we will go through what addiction means again, how alcohol may be used to harm the brain and body, how alcohol can intensify the effects of other drugs, and addiction and the bases in the brain. So we will start with addiction and the bases in the brain. So alcohol can be beer, wine, hard liquors like gin, vodka, tequila, whiskey, cognac, and it affects many areas of the brain and causes memory loss, impaired motor coordination, impaired thinking and problem solving, and changes in your emotional behavior, and sometimes unfortunately leads to death. Now, impaired motor coordination is when you might see on TV where people are walking the line and they're wobbling, or you have to follow the finger. Those are those impaired motor coordinations when adults get stopped for driving under the influence for alcohol or other substances. And so while alcohol is legal, like we've said, it affects the frontal lobe of your brain, and that's a type of brain structure. So we'll talk about frontal lobe, your hippocampus, your cerebellum, your medulla oblongata, which is a word you probably heard in one of those movies. Can't remember that, but it's a movie where they talk about medulla oblongata, and your pons. And so there's a picture. I'll insert the picture here. And alcohol affects your frontal lobe of the brain, causing thinking and problem solving difficulties, motor coordination, like we just said, problems that are caused by the effects of your cerebellum. So cerebellum is where all of your motor coordination, your balance, all that comes from, picking up things, being able to do normal tasks. And it can also cause memory loss by damaging your hippocampus. And so your hippocampus is where your memory kind of functions are. And so these are awesome terms for you. And so we can put in those definitions of what hippocampus means as well as cerebellum. And so in large doses, alcohol can cause a person's heart to stop beating through the effects of the medulla oblongata, another word, and the pons as well. So if you've watched the POP series, you've heard us talk about neurotransmitters, but we have to bring them up when it comes to alcohol as well. And so alcohol has specific receptors that we talked about before. It's kind of like a ball, and I'll insert a picture, and it sits into kind of like a lock and a key mechanism of the receptor and the neurotransmitter in the brain. And researchers have found that alcohol affects your GABA, which is short for gamma aminobutyric acid, but we're just gonna call it GABA. And so GABA is that neurotransmitter that alcohol affects, and so with that it binds to them, and GABA makes it inhibitory to the response, and in other words it decreases the activity of the neurons. And so GABA can cause decreased attention, memory, alterations, mood changes, and drowsiness. And so a lot of people maybe fall asleep behind the wheel, and brain activity slows down. So you're losing some brain activity when you are using alcohol. And so alcohol interrupts all your normal functions of all the other neurotransmitters there's as well, and it can inhibit other behaviors, and it can also affect how you are socially interacting with people, and it decreases your inhibitions. So in other words, inhibitions meaning kind of your kind of checkpoints. And so you're responsible for a lot of your pleasurable aspects of drinking. So it will cause you to want to drink more because you're feeling good, and so you have no inhibition as far as, okay, I need to stop from drinking. So you're just going to keep doing more and more and more. And so long-term damage to the body is where it's a disorder. It's a really funny name, Wernicke-Korsakoff's of sort, and it's associated with long-term alcoholism. And so because alcohol damages the brain, people with this condition cannot form new memories. So that's definitely what we're trying to get across here, is the fact that there's some really long-term effects that are unreversible, and that's one of them. And long-term use of alcohol can definitely also potentially have fatal use to your liver disease called cirrhosis of the liver. And so the liver's job is to remove those poisons and germs and icky things that go on from our blood, and to help our body function normally. But because alcohol is really a poison to the body, the liver works really extra hard to get all that extra stuff out. And so when your liver is not working correctly, it kind of just shuts down and kind of doesn't work and is not really functionable. And so that's what cirrhosis is. And so when alcohol is repeatedly and excessively used, it just kind of just turns it off altogether. So that is our first module. I appreciate you guys listening to some scientific terms. We'll put up the definitions for you so you can see all of that. They should have been all throughout the video so you get a good understanding. But what I didn't add in the POP series that I'm going to add in Legal But Not Lit is a cool activity called underage drinking in media. And so what this really pertains to, and we are all at home, you should still be socially distancing and maybe quarantining depending on what state you're in. Popular television and movies often depict underage drinking. We see it everywhere, so we think it's legal, but it ain't. It ain't. It is important for teens to think critically about the media's portrayal of alcohol usage and recognize the both inaccuracies and accuracies. So what I want you to do with a group of friends, maybe on Zoom, is to give about 10 minutes and to list television shows and movies that portray underage drinking using our media report card, where you can kind of check off, you can call it your media report card and check off which ones. And in the comment section, make you a comment section in 2 columns and kind of note, things that you're seeing about, what you can what you can determine as accuracies and inaccuracies about what you shouldn't be doing when it comes to underage drinking. And so think of some of these questions as you're determining the grade for the movie. Number 1, how often is underage drinking depicted? What is the tone of the scene in which underage drinking is depicted? For example, is the scene funny, comedy, designed to elicit some laughs? Or does it take underage drinking more seriously, like a child getting in trouble by their parents finding out? Were there consequences for the underage drinking shown? And are the effects of alcohol in the brain and body depicted? So sometimes they're often removed, but let's see if that was in there too. And you guys can grade this as a group with your friends to check that out. Cool activity. I know you'll have fun during quarantine.